To the capital of Germany now. Ben Aris is there, a former Russia reporter. And Ben, you're one of our go-to guys on Russia because you've lived in the country itself. Is Vladimir Putin right when he says the West is trying to undermine his country?
From the Russian perspective, there's definitely a rivalry going on here, and the Russians feel themselves to be under attack, and that the West wants to contain them. Specifically, Putin's been complaining about what he sees as interference in internal affairs, and he now increasingly is taking the line where I don't acknowledge your right to tell me what to do in my country. You wouldn't dare do that to any of your allies. Why are you doing it to us? And they're trying to say that we're no longer an emerging market. We're no longer a junior partner whereby the West comes and tells us how to organize things. We're grown-ups now. We have a fully functioning market economy. We have money in the bank, and we won't tolerate being lectured to by the international community. And this is causing a clash because of the human rights. Navalny's in jail. He's said to be very sick, on the verge of death maybe. And people have taken, there is a conflict between the two. It's like, rooted in the Cold War era. But the Russians, what's changed since February is the Russians are taking a very hard line, and they are intolerant of any criticism, and that manifests itself. They are intolerant of any sanctions. And so they're pushing back very hard. And why they're pushing back, what's destabilizing things is we've got a new president in the White House, and it's actually unclear. We have very little detail on what President Biden is going to do. And so part of this tough line is posturing, gesturing, trying to make it clear, trying to set the tone for the new relationships with Biden, with the Biden administration, and to restrain him in his sanctions, because they're saying, look, there's going to be some serious pushback if you try to bully us. At the same time, there's reaching out by both sides. It's not as obvious, but that was also in the speech today, that Putin offered some olive branches. He mentioned specifically the possibility of arms controls talk, which is what Biden started with. And he offered as well push for climate change, for cooperation with the international community. And he's supposed to participate in a climate conference with Biden, I think it's tomorrow. And so there is some common ground for the first time. And this is also new, that there's some common ground. But both sides are talking very, very tough.
Ben, what do you know about these reports that the Kremlin is going to declare Alexei Navalny's political party an extremist organization? And do you actually think that Vladimir Putin might quite like it if Navalny dies in prison?
As to Navalny's death, I don't think they'd like that to happen. There'd be obviously a lot of blowback, and it's not something that would be forgotten. And Sergei Magnitsky, the lawyer who died in prison, has been a constant thorn in the side of the Kremlin ever since. It's actually not clear just how sick Navalny is, but hopefully he won't die. And I think the Kremlin will give him medical attention that he needs to try and prevent that. As for outlawing his organization, I think that's a done deal. In so much as you have to bear in mind although Navalny is very well known in the West and held up as an icon, a leading opposition figure, within Russia itself, he's actually a bit of a non-entity. There have been various polls. Half of the Russians are totally indifferent to what he's doing, who he is. Another quarter don't like him, object to him. And of the remaining quarter, only about 20% of that is true Navalny believers. And the rest just object to the way he's being treated by the Kremlin, which is to say that they don't like the authorities' power to arrest people on political grounds. If you take the protests which are actually going on as we speak, the Navalny team were calling for 500,000 people to come out to the streets. The first protest produced about 100,000. I think the numbers today are going to prove to be very disappointing. I mean, we've got 10,000 in Moscow, which is a good turnout. In some of the regional capitals like Yekaterinburg, also 10,000. But in many of the other cities, instead of the 2,000 to 4,000 or 5,000 that registered, only a few hundred have turned out. So there is sympathy for Navalny, but largely it's framed more an objection to the heavy-handed way that the Kremlin is behaving, and people want a just legal system, rules of the game that they understand, and not an authority that can push them around. So they're unhappy, and they've come out on the streets again. But again, it's not like Belarus. It's not like hundreds of thousands of people in a tiny country. This is tens of thousands of people in a country with 146 million people who are complaining as opposed to protesting.
Ben, as always, thank you very much indeed. Ben Aris speaking to us there from Berlin.